And so I'm back for my UFC on Fox 5 predictions, and this is the first event that I am doing in the new style where I'm only talking about a few of the bouts going on, but at the end of the video you can see, as usual, my full list of predictions. I'm still making predictions for the whole event. I'll also say apologies right away for the fact that Toby the Canary is in the room and he may well start singing. It's shrill, it's loud, and there's absolutely nothing I can do about it. So here we go then. Just to let you know, if you didn't know already, Michael Chiesa versus Marcus Levisser, which was supposed to be on this card, has been cancelled because Michael is ill, apparently. So I'm going to start with Scott Jorgensen versus John Albert. Bit disappointing to see Scott Jorgensen so far down on the card, considering what he was in WEC. But he's had a little bit of a dramatic sort of full stop on his career, so to speak. He's coming off 2 losses in a row, and looking at them, they are people that he could have beaten at his calibre, at the calibre he was, and he's basically got to get back on track if he hopes to, move forward like he was. They have been nice to him. John Albert has a record of 7-3, which is less than his, 13-6. He's also on a 2-fight loss streak, and all his losses are by submission, which is good for Scott Jorgensen, because if you remove the decision victories and losses, which everybody has, he also seems to be quite capable of winning by submission, and I think that he really needs to do that here. I'm hoping that he will. I'm going to go for Scott Jorgensen, a bar submission in the second. Person who it's nice to see on the card here, Dennis Siver, who is German. He's a European, and his record is 20-8. He wins and loses by submission, and he is fighting Phan, who's 18-10 and never been submitted. Do I think Dennis Siver will beat him by submission? Probably not, to be totally honest. However, I do think that the calibres on Dennis Siver's background, which are decent calibres, with specialities on stand-up and submissions, he should be able to win this one. I'm going to go for Dennis Siver by decision. Mike Swick versus Matt Brown is another interesting fight here. Mike Swick, of course, was rather big sort of in the early part of this decade, and he was sort of fast-tracked. Well, he wasn't fast-tracked, he was sort of shoved out of the way during a fast-tracking, and he then jumped divisions, and he did reasonably, and then he didn't do so well, and he took a good year, if not a good 2 years off. He came back in his last fight, and he did really well, and I think that he again has to show here that he, if we're to believe that last time wasn't just sort of a fluky comeback, then we need to know that he's back for good, and this is going to be the perfect example. He's been giving off a bit of smack talk about this, which I don't know why. He's facing Matt Brown, who is another striker, and I would have said maybe a year and a half ago that Mike Swick would have won this one easily. I am not so sure now, because Matt Brown has just had a 3-fight win streak, and he's doing so much better. The only reason I think here that I'm saying that I think Mike Swick will win, rather than saying I'm not really sure, is because the level of calibre that Mike Swick has fought in the past and beaten is higher. Mike Swick wants a TKO. I don't know if it will be a TKO or if it will be a decision. I'll say TKO in the third or decision, but I'm pretty sure that Mike Swick will win that one. The main event is Benson Henderson fighting Nathan Diaz, and this is Nathan Diaz's title shot. There's not much difference on record. 17-2 for Benson Henderson and 16-7 for Nathan Diaz. Now, Benson Henderson has a near enough unblemished record in both WEC and the UFC, bar that fantastic Showtime kick loss with Anthony Pettis, of which that hasn't been avenged since, I hasten to add, since the merger, but there we are. I've rattled on about that far too much already. So you can look back at videos to my thoughts on that. But anyway, wins and loses by submission does Benson Henderson, but he's only lost once, and that was a very, very long time ago. Nathan Diaz, you know, he wins by submission. Unfortunately for him, he loses by decision, and Benson Henderson is becoming a master of decisions at keeping his crown, albeit that he's at least giving a good performance en route. We could go on about Jim Miller here, because both of them have fought Jim Miller, who is the sort of standard, I suppose, for submissions. And we could say, you know, Nathan Diaz, he managed to submit Jim Miller, which was quite outstanding, whereas Benson Henderson did not. However, of course, Benson Henderson was not finished by him either. You know, I desperately, desperately hope that this is a submission victory for Nathan Diaz. But I do think that if we're in round 3 and it hasn't happened, he's going to lose by decision. So, you know, the only other fight I want to talk about is BJ Penn versus Rory MacDonald. Rory MacDonald, an up-and-comer in the welterweight division, and this is something that has, you know, happened during the period of time where Georges St Pierre hasn't been around, and so Rory MacDonald's one of these sort of mushrooms that have grown in this space and a possibility for the future. He has been very, very rude about BJ Penn, and Penn of course went into retirement after not having such a good run at welterweight, which I hasten to add was not the division that he works best in. It's not his natural division anyway. He's known of course for fighting outside of his division and for being able to fight at title level and win at title level outside of his division. As a pure skill fighter, you know, he's probably one of the best that has ever been. This is going on up at that weight class, I think, or at least at a catch weight. It's not at Penn's natural weight class, which does bode for Rory MacDonald. However, if you look at the level, the calibre of people that BJ Penn had always fought in the past, God, maybe 5 years, 6 years possibly, whether it be at lightweight or welterweight, it has always been the upper echelons, only the very top. So to say that he should have gone into retirement in the first place was something that I wasn't so sure he meant, and wasn't so sure he needed to do. I don't believe that he should be back at welterweight. I do believe that he should go back to lightweight or below. But I still think here that Rory MacDonald is probably going to be in for a bit of a rude awakening here. It will depend on BJ Penn also putting in the work for training, which we know in the past he sometimes hasn't done. So there is a little bit of doubt, there's always a little bit of doubt. But if Penn comes in on absolutely top form, then he will easily beat Rory MacDonald, just with all the history and all the past and the higher level of calibres that he's faced. If he isn't on top level, then because it's at welterweight, you know, Rory MacDonald actually stands a chance. But even so, I don't believe Rory MacDonald will finish him. It would just be a decision victory. But I am here favouring Penn, and I'm probably favouring a stoppage of some sort as well.